All steps
Let's go.
And we're live. Welcome everyone to the UnFuckIt discussion. It is July 10th. Again, I don't even remember where June went to, so I'm at a loss of how we're already 1/3 of the way through July. I'm talking to you from the hottest spot in all of Europe today. It was just absolutely brutally hot here, as Clive can attest to. And Jenny, we were melting our asses off here today. So if you see me like start, wiping myself down, you'll understand if I pull out a towel. What the actual fuck? I've put out the most geomagnetic reports I think I've ever put out in the last week, because the shit that's going on in the magnetosphere and the magnetopause is insane at the moment. Absolutely crazy stuff. Stuff that we've never seen before. Like I said, I've been watching the solar feeds for 10 years. The stuff that we're seeing, for example, is the magnetopause literally crunching, and it's bad. It's been going on all day. It's continued all day today. So the last report I put out, I think it ended at around 1 p.m. was the feeds. It's just continued. And when we see this magnetopause crunching, we're used to seeing that kind of action under severe geomagnetic storms, like KP7s, KP8s. You see the magnetopause react this way. Extreme solar wind stream coming in. We will see that kind of thing happen. We have never seen the magnetopause do the shit that it's doing right now. I should pull my mic down. That would help, wouldn't it? We've never seen the magnetopause do the shit that it's doing right now, nonstop. This has been now, this last batch, it's been 4 days of the magnetopause literally being distorted and crunched with wave after wave coming in. Never have I seen this before. The hits that we're seeing come in, like I said in today's report, if you haven't had a chance to see it, I'll drop the link into the article that'll go along with this video. Yes, the coronal hole solar wind stream has finally hit us. And of course, that's the excuse, the talking heads, that's the excuse. Oh, well, we had this CME that they didn't see, for the 4th or 5th time in the last 3 months. CME that we just didn't know was coming, yeah, bullshit. Now the solar wind stream that they've been predicting has hit us. And of course, they're blaming that for the geomagnetic storm, except that the first geomagnetic storm started before the solar wind stream picked up. It might be, as I said in the report today, it might be pushing things a little worse, but it's not the cause. It's certainly not the cause of what we're seeing going on. Now, I put a report out a few months back talking about the fact that as our magnetic shields get weaker, it's going to take less and less severe events to affect it the same way, i.e., the things that we saw happen in 2012, 2013, 2014, we can no longer judge an event by those measuring sticks. Back then, me seeing a C-class flare, I would not have even paid attention. I would have been like, the C-class. Wake me up if we hit like an M9, an M10, maybe an X-class, then I'll really start to pay some attention. Now we've seen that the same C-class flares are having huge effects, the kind of effects that we were seeing in high-level M-class flares 5 years ago. Because I hypothesize, is because, of course, the magnetic shields are getting weaker. As they get weaker, it takes a lot less energy coming in to really disturb it. So I have to wonder, like, have we had another sudden, has the magnetic shields just lessened hugely all of a sudden in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's hard to tell. It's hard to know. It's hard to say because we don't have the equipment to be able to take accurate measurements of these things. But there's something going on. And when we look at, again, as I keep talking about, the weather, the insanity of the weather, the insanity of the geological stuff, these earthquakes, the volcanoes going off. So like I said last week, we've got Etna just blew and Stromboli blew the very next day. That's right just north of me in Italy. We've got volcanoes all over, from Kamchatka in Russia to Indonesia to Philippines, like literally Japan. There's volcanoes going everywhere. Yellowstone in the States. There's a lot of warning stuff coming out about Yellowstone right now. Now, like I said, 3 weeks ago in LA, they had tar bubbling up across the roads and around the La Brea tar pits area, and natural gas coming out. And I made a joke, kind of like, oh, has anyone, gotten a hold of Tommy Lee Jones? Because we're going to need someone to handle this for us. Sat down and watched the movie. Literally, I sat down and watched the movie, but a week later, I downloaded the movie Volcano just to see. And the events run exactly parallel, like the whole thing with the earthquakes, et cetera, et cetera. You're like, volcano under Los Angeles? It's not so hard a stretch anymore with some of the new stuff that we're learning about volcanism, right? We're seeing this stuff. And is it the magnetics of the planet or the magnetics of the solar system, quite literally, that are affecting the planet, that are setting off this geological stuff? I would have to say, okay, it doesn't prove causality, but it's a pretty good indicator when we know what we know about how geomagnetics affect earthquake and fault lines, etc., etc. So I don't know what to say. It's just fucking crazy ass at the moment. Crazy ass. So yeah, I would like to see what the chat is saying. Unfortunately, I've lost my chat somehow. I don't know what happened to my chat window, and I'm trying to fix it. Hey, look, there we go. Look, I finally got my chat back, so now I can see what everyone's talking about. Let's see what everyone's saying. Oh, Megan's here and Jules is here. Good. Glad you guys are here at the moment. Megan just said eclipses do trigger crazy shit, and we just passed the midpoint between the eclipses yesterday. Well, and yesterday we had a blast that came through geomagnetically that was huge. John, is the stream running right now, or is it crashed again? It is running. Okay, guys, I'm out there on Twitch. I'm really sorry. The stream keeps crashing. It seems like internet is an issue for everyone at the moment, and I've been hearing about a lot of live streams going down. So, yeah, I don't know. We're at Megan. Nice. So basically, we're in the middle of a fuckery sandwich. Thank you. Thank you for making us feel all better. Well, this is crazy because like we were just before we went live, we were talking about it, and on Saturday when we did the astrology show, and after we talked about the unheard generation, we did the what the fuck is going on right now section on that. The ladies warned us, and we're like, yeah, Monday, Tuesday, it's going to be crazy ass shit. And guess what? Monday, Tuesday, we're crazy ass shit. And a lot of people were like, holy crap, it happened exactly like they said it was going to happen. Yeah, Mercury is also retrograde along with 5 other planets. Are we 5 or 6 now? Is Chiron joined Mercury yet? I think so. We've got 5 or 6 planets all in retrograde right now. Yes, and Chiron is they've got 6 planets in retrograde, and Chiron is now in retrograde as well. Along with Mercury in retrograde, high crashing stream. There we go. Yeah, Clive, I've gone retrograde myself right now. That's what I feel like. I'm permanently in retrograde at this moment. So retrograde, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Chiron, Neptune, and Pluto are all in retrograde right now. And there's another planet that goes retrograde in August, isn't it? I was looking at the planetary list, and I was like, oh, Uranus. There you go. And Uranus goes in August. It goes right retrograde. Oh, it'll be just delightful. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm thinking of going to find a cave to go hide in for the next couple of months because A, it's got to be cooler than my house, and B, yeah. Good question, Megan or Jules. If one of you guys wants to unmute. Maury said, I've heard of Chiron, but I don't not recognize it as a planet. Technically, what is it? It's one of the moons. It's the moon. Uranus? No, Neptune? I can't remember which one it is. It's an asteroid. Oh, it's an asteroid. I thought it was a moon.
There's a moon with a similar name, Charon, or Charon, however you want to pronounce it. That's one of Pluto's moons. Spelled a little bit. Chiron's an asteroid, and it's really intimately tied to Uranus and Saturn because its orbit crosses their orbits. So it's about the weird things that we deal with and limitations. The mythology of it is it's the wounded healer. So Chiron we're in our late 40s, early 50s by the time we have a Chiron return. Might be later in the 40s, less close to the 50s. Anyway, sorry, the kids are distracting me. But it's something that we deal with over and over again in our lives, and it pops up, and it really just sucks, and there's a lot of woundedness, but we overcome it, and we're actually able to teach others and share with others and help other people overcome the same message. But it's one of those things that just pops up, and it really sucks. So with all these other planets being retrograde, and now Chiron's retrograde, it's like all the fucking shit that you always have to deal with is coming back up.
Right now. Here's a big platter full of shit. Eat it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of, if you want to get really woo, Chiron and South Node stuff, which we have a lot of activations with right now, they tie into not just like full lifetime wounding, past lifetime wounding, and stuff that you carry with you, whether it's through like ancestral lineages or like your own past life stuff. Yeah. Like you can see people that have been like burned at the stake, stuff like that, play out with Chiron in their chart. Like it's seriously stuff you can't escape.
Yep. Well, it's funny because we got into, and you posted a graphic, Megan, during the show, and I meant to try and grab it from you, and I forgot by the time I posted the article. It showed it was really unique the way it showed the physicality of the planets and how they affect the various body parts. And I was saying just before we went live that I haven't dealt with the let's say the emotional. I haven't really been hit with a lot of the emotional stuff that a lot of people have been hit with in the last couple of days. But the physical, like break my foot again, the back problems, hip problems, arms, hands, headaches. It's been crazy. And everyone I've spoken to is the same thing. They're going through this excessive amount of pain that's all come up in the last 3-4 days. Just like physical pain that has no, okay, the broken foot is obviously got a cause, but no causality. Do you know what I mean? Like when you wake up and you're just like, oh my God, my shoulders are so locked up and sore, or your neck, or your hips. Again, I was doing it on Monday where I got out of bed and it was just like, oh my God, has someone been beating me while I was sleeping? That's literally what it bloody felt like. So is the retrograde of the planets, is that what's causing the physical pain? Or is it just the positioning of it? Headaches, kidney, lumbar area, yeah. A lot of that is Saturn and the South Node. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, guys. All I know is that like shit is just so fucking crazy insane. You have no words. Like literally yesterday, everyone in my house had a headache. Every single person in my house had a headache. In different spots, some of it was here. Kale had it here, and Quinlan had it here. I had it at the back. Nick had it at the back of the neck. Like the whole family had a headache all at once. It wasn't like we had weather coming in, because that's what I turned to Nick. I was like, okay, do we have like some kind of a thunderstorm coming in? Because that's that feeling when you can feel like a low pressure system coming in. I get triggered bad headaches from that. It's like, no, there was no thunderstorm, no nothing, no changes in that way. No, Clive, not lack of water. Trust me, I'll give you an idea. I filled this 5-liter jug just before I went to bed, not last night, the night before. So I have drank that much water, basically 5 liters, in less than 2 days. Have a drink right now.
Hey, Danny.
Yeah, Gypsy.
I got an interesting call this morning from a friend of mine in Florida.
Yeah.
On Monday, her husband was watching TV. He doesn't like commercials, so he muted the commercials. When he unmuted the commercials, Ginger said he was looking at her going, now, don't do that. Don't just move your lips and not talk. Well, bottom line, he lost his entire hearing in just a matter of moments. And they cannot figure out what is going on with him. I mean, that's just like weird.
Is like a brain aneurysm, like or blood vessel around the ear area?
Did a CAT scan, found absolutely nothing wrong, and now they're just referring him to an ENT. I mean, hearing just gone like that. Gone.
That's crazy. And I hate to say it, like that's when we go into the woo-woo sometimes. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you sit there.
Absolutely.
Like you sit there and you go, he just have another timeline come in that had an accident and it was deaf, and that's just
it. Done. No hearing.
Hey, Gypsy, is that you talking about your landlord?
No, I have a friend down in Clearwater, Florida. Now she and he are in the unheard silence generation. So, just bizarro, just very bizarre.
Wow.
And I was run over by a truck yesterday too. So.
Not literally, but
okay,
hurt.
Fuck, Gypsy, don't say shit like that. You freak me the fuck out.
Well, when I was 3 years old, I was backed over by a truck. So I've actually lived through that. So I'm okay.
Oi, 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 oi. Peg just said, I went totally deaf in my right ear only a few years back and no explanation. It lasted a month, was gone suddenly, and then when it came back, but it gradually came back. And no explanation, Peg? Like they never... Nope, no explanation. I'm saying. They never figured it out. The weird ass shit. Joanna, where are you? Joanna just said, I saw 7 Apache helicopters so low and loud. What area are you in?
I just get off my pad. I'm sorry.
Upstate South Carolina. Well, I don't know. Shit in the States right now, I'm telling you. Well, I was having, okay, Megan, it's funny you should say that because I've had something for the last 2 days. Megan was just saying I was having major hearing issues over winter. Last time Mercury did the RX, the retrograde dance with Chiron and Neptune. Constantly felt like I was hearing underwater and the water slowly drained away. I have had now about 4 times in the last 36, 48 hours that feeling like a pressure bell coming over your head, where all of a sudden you can feel the pressure like all the way around, and everything gets, your hearing goes weird, that kind of like you're hearing from inside a kettle, like inside something over your head. And it only lasts for maybe a minute, 2 minutes tops, and then it's gone again. But I've had that at least 4 times in the last few days. Holy shit, Jules, seriously? You couldn't have been very old.
No, it was 18. So on a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse in 95, I had a mini stroke. I just had a massive migraine and then just passed out. Woke up and I lost left peripheral vision.
In one eye?
In one eye.
Wow. At 18, like that's seriously young for that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my daughters, Sony, one of my daughters is doing the same thing where she says, I can't hear mommy, and she keeps trying to repressurize her ears to try and get it to pop out. So that's one of those same things, like that kind of plays into, again, like this strange weather. If we're talking about really, really dense high and low pressure systems. And as Ben always talks about the polarities, right? And if polarities are switching like this, those pressure systems, you feel them. Like, I mean, you really feel. And we're here, literally the other day, we were driving up the hill from our village, which is right on the seaside, up the hill. And I'm talking literally, it's a hill. It's not that big. Into Victoria, and my ears popped twice. And I was just saying, like, come on, like, seriously, it's like, it's barely a hill. And my ear was popped twice. And of course, having ear problems as well. Yeah, I don't know. And it could be barometric pressure. It could be, like, we know with the weather systems right now that all the jet streams are changing, right? Like, their patterns are changing. They're flowing differently. When we have these kind of major shifts in the airstreams and the jet streams, this causes really weird high and low pressure systems, which is why we're getting things like these massive hailstorms, and we're getting a lot of these big tropical cyclones and things like that. So is that what we're feeling? Maybe? I'm trying to catch up now. I'm like behind. Everyone's going like crazy in the chat. Yeah, Stephanie, mine have done that a couple times at home too, where yours just suddenly popped for no reason. Joanna, so do you think that if there's a major aerospace hub there, is that where the Apaches were flying in and out of? Okay, no, Heather, that's really interesting, because that comes up with the shit that we talked about last week. Heather just said it could be stagnant lymphatic fluid that the pressure pulls on, which could really mess with us up. Well, last week we talked about lymphatic swelling, massive fluid buildup, and lymph nodes infections, like swelling of the lymph nodes, et cetera, et cetera. So that does make a lot of sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. Oi, the weirdness. Oh, the weirdness. I'm telling you. So who of you guys, because I know not very many of you guys were there for us for our post fringe discussion on Sunday. I don't know if everyone had a chance to listen to the video that I put out, because it was a fucking good discussion. We got into some seriously heavy shit. Okay, hold on. Bossy, Pus is a symptom too. Was pus a symptom? That is, it depends on what you define as pus. Like infections, skin infections, abscesses, boils. That is one of the things that has been coming up for a lot of people in the last 3 weeks. Massive amount of skin infections, abscesses, and a lot of them are abscesses in the lymphatic areas, in the armpits, in the groin area, etc. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to know, like, do you guys have any thoughts? You've had a chance to sit with Sunday night's discussion, and kind of mull it over for a couple of days. Does anyone have any thoughts on some of our topics that we discussed? Of all the Stranger Things, Fringe, multiverse, parallel dimensions, portals into the upside down, stargates, etc., etc. Oh, Jules, it was a pretty heavy duty one. It was a pretty heavy duty one. We threw a lot of shit on the table to see what would stick. We threw a lot. It was a no holds barred. We really put a lot of shit on the table to discuss. Yeah, it's like I said, got oh, Bossy, that's a really bad joke. That is a
No. It's not a bad joke. I had last week the craziest awakening ever. I had the urge to go onto hang on, how is that called in English? An etymologic dictionary, right?
Yep.
And I wanted to find out what the word dimension actually means. Because we get told a dimension, I can cross over to a dimension and I'm in a totally new universe, right? Or in a parallel dimension. But that is absolutely fucking bullshit. This word literally means measurement, right? Like, measurement is very important. We are living in 3D. Up, down, forward, backward, left, right, right? Then you have other measurements like heat, cold.
Yep.
You have heaviness, lightness, right? You have small, super small, super small, and you have big and complex and bigger and complexer and whatever, right? What is if they fucking lied to us again and gave us a fucking ridiculous concept? Because I can see in a different dimension if I use a microscope, because I see
absolutely using that word in that terminology is, and a telescope. You can go back and forth between a microscope and a telescope, and you're absolutely seeing in different dimensions.
A telescope is something different. You're focusing one spot of light, right? Like you're focusing all your attention on one specific point. That is not the opposite of a microscope. That would be a macroscope.
Yeah, but
no, I'm talking a microscope as in looking at microscopic particles versus looking out vastly into space. I'm not talking about light focusing eye or anything else. I'm literally talking about the two extremes, from micro tiny to massively huge.
They're all, but remember that everything's occupying the same space. It's just the differences. That's all.
Yes. It's like, remember that movie
Contact?
Contact?
It's not really another place, is what I'm saying. It's all in the same spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But because you use the word space, this word literally, if I go on that page and try to find out the root of this word space always encompasses 3 dimension. It always has time in it.
No, a space doesn't necessarily. A space can be a measurement that's 2-dimensional. You can talk about, and your math class, color in the space between these 2 squares. That is a 2-dimensional area.
Right. Space can mean many things. I mean,
look it up where the root of the word comes from. That is the actual root that the word means. I posted it.
Right, but we're not talking. Okay, and I get what you're saying about etymologically speaking. I'm talking about how we use the words now. right?
Yeah.
So we have words. Listen, there are words that we use now that the definitions don't even mean the same thing anymore. And old English definitions that were come up in like the 17 1800s, we use the same words and we don't use them even remotely in the same way. So I'm talking about literally when I use the word dimension, I actually wanted to get into this a little bit today. I'm using it in the modern sci-fi fantasy definition of another dimension, right? I'm using the modern definition of that dimension. Not as a dimension as in a measurement, but as a dimension as in like another reality.
Yeah, but then again, you are in measurement again. You are one of countless other dimensions, which is a measurement, right? Like, it's like saying you can't tell me the percentage of whatever happens, but I can ask you a question on a scale from 1 to 100. How do you feel, right? It's still a measurement, even though I go around it, so to speak.
Right. But that's not. This is what we're trying to say to you. We're not using dimension as a measurement.
Yeah.
We're using dimension as another, not even slightly, as another place, mirror, another realm of this place that we're in, another dimension, i.e., looking at, for example, using Fringe as an example, universe, the prime, and then the second universe. It was another dimension, existing in the exact same place, just off.
By very little, by the way. Very little.
Very, very little, exactly.
The measurement is very, very small. Yes.
And probably measurable in frequency.
Well, that's it. That's it. It's the same concept of watching the TV. You know, all the other stations are playing at the same time, but you're only looking at one.
Yeah, exactly.
Through a measurement in frequency, right?
Okay, Sassy.
I'm sorry for trolling.
We're trying to make a point, except your point is irrelevant to the conversation, darling. We're talking about dimension in not a measurement. It has nothing to do with measurement. We're talking about a different definition of that word.
Yes.
That's what we're trying to make very clear here. It's not about measurement. It's not about the dimensions of a cube or a sphere. It's not about that.
Right. Like I always say, Bossy, these beings are all around us all the time. We just can't see them. You know, like in my addiction, I saw them plainly. For 9 months, I was living in hell. Okay? They're all around us all the time.
I'm not saying that they don't exist, but we don't have...
They're the same concept, though. We're trying to tell you.
Yes, but that also means if I don't have the right receiver to see what is happening or to constantly see these beings, but if I'm in a state where this happens, this could well be, right? It's like,
yes,
we're here again on measurements, right? I can only see the light that comes in here. It's a measurement on the scale, right?
Yeah, but Bossy,
I'm not saying
why are you pushing this thing about measurements? Okay, so go back and it starts from the beginning. Why you brought up the whole etymological of the word dimensions? So why are you stuck on the measurement aspect of it? Maybe there's a piece that we're missing.
Because it's all scalable. It's all a scale. Everything happens in the small as it happens in the big, right? Like the bigger you go, the more complex things become. And these things that we think or experience that happened actually might be true on a higher scale, coming down, bleeding down to us as we see through the microscope what's happening down there. There might be other things higher up that are affecting us right now.
But what we're trying to express is it's not necessarily, when we use the word scale, we're talking, it's a 1 to 5 scale, right? So i.e., you look at a map and you have the little scale in the corner of the map that tells you that this centimeter, this space here equals 5 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, right? It's a scale. What we're saying is that scale, i.e. size, is not necessarily what we're referring to. The size we're referring to could be the exact same. The Danny in another dimension is probably the exact same size as the Danny in this dimension, the same scale. But they exist not as in looking down, like you say, through a microscope and looking down. It literally exists parallel to ours on the exact same scale. It's just one step away.
Sorry for messing this up. Never mind.
Okay, I just trying to clarify. I'm trying to make sure that I understand where you were trying to go with the conversation. That's all. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying.
I have to say something real quick. Yeah, it's like it's.
Now, did Star crash or did I crash? I'd say I just crashed. Fuck. Okay, is it me?
Weird. That was weird. All of you froze. Everybody froze except for me and one other person.
Well, because it started at Star froze first, so I was just like, oh, Star, you're frozen, oh no. And then I'm looking at you guys and I can still see Maury move and Dawn move and Clive move. And then I froze. And then I unfroze and then everyone else froze.
Yeah.
Wait, did you even hear what I did? Heck, maybe you didn't hear anything of what
Say
I
it
said.
again, Star. We didn't hear a single word you said. We were all frozen then.
Then I was saying to Bassy about not making things complicated, because that's what he was doing. And you ladies are trying to make it simplistic and clarify for him what it actually means, or the whole what you were clarifying it to him. So yeah, that's what I was saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing I want to bring up is in the conversation we had on Sunday, and twice during the conversation I meant to make the comment and then got completely sidetracked, as we do during those discussions, is that obviously, again, what Basi brought up, etymology and meanings of words. And this was a perfect example of we all have, you can say the multiple dimensions or the other dimension, and people will take from that their own definition. So one of the things I want to clarify, because some people use the terms dimension and say, for example, timeline, and they mean it in the same way, and I don't. And I personally, I wanted to outline that there is a difference between the multiple dimensions, so the multiverse, and that concept that we're talking about where there's Earth A, Earth B, Earth C, Earth D, Earth 1,000, right? That are mirrors of our own, and that is actually different from, hold on, that is different from different timelines. And there can be many, exactly, Sony, there can be many timelines within every dimension. Every dimension can have its own timelines that are split off from within that its own dimension, right? So when we are talking about multiple timelines, and for example, we're talking about timelines coming back together, and that's one of the things we talked about was, again, Bill Brockbrader and several of those people who spoke pre-2012, and they talked about, like, for example, the remote viewers, Operation Looking Glass, not being able to see beyond and seeing these timelines, all these timelines fractured, coming back in together again, is not to be confused with the word dimensions. And it's very, very interesting when we get into this conversation because it's the same thing when we use the word fractals of ourselves. But how do we define that? Do we define the fractals of ourselves as in the Danny that's on all the multiple timelines, split timelines within this dimension? Or are we talking about the fractals of ourselves as being within other dimensions? as in these mirror dimensions. So again, going back to Fringe again, we had Olivia and Folivia, and you have Walter and Walternet. And to me, in my own headspace and how I've thought this through, is the fact that I think the fractals of ourselves could very well be the split timelines. And I wonder that I don't think the fractals of ourselves are necessarily dimensional, but I don't know. I'd love to get you guys' take on that, what your thoughts are. Because we're going into the deep woo now. We're going into the seriously. Maury's just shaking his head at me like, seriously, did you just go there? Fuck.
Damn, you're reading my mind now, Danny.
I'm sorry. This is where my brain's been for like I've been really, like, since Sunday, mulling over these words that we use and how, with our very limited language skills that we have, to be able to define these words in such a way as to make it very clear to the listener, the other person you're talking to, that they can comprehend what it is that you're saying. Because when we have these conversations, it's really, really tough to be able to make sure that the other person is not misinterpreting the words that we're using. Okay, now, Sony just said fractals versus aspects, and that's really interesting. Do you consider fractals as different from aspects? Or are they another definition of the same thing?
Yeah, I was going to say, fractals will hold aspects. That's what I think.
So Jules says no. Jules, you're saying no, you think it's the same thing? No, Sonia, it's a great question, because that's another word that we use. Aspect of ourselves, fractals of ourselves. These are words that we use, and that same thing we start discussing, and all of a sudden you wonder if we're on the same page. Do you know what I'm saying? I've had conversation with friends where you get 2 hours into a conversation, and then all of a sudden you both discovered that when I'm saying dimension, she's thinking timelines, and we're having a real debate about stuff, and then you realize you're not actually even talking about the same thing. And then you go and you laugh and you go, okay, let's back up again. Let's 2 hours go backwards. Okay, start again. No, I'm meaning this. It's Mercedes saw yesterday an episode of Beyond Stranger Things 2, a scientist explaining the bubbles of dimensions touching, where one could probably poke a hole through, like they try in Stranger Things. Well, and that's why, I haven't seen that episode yet, and it's one of the ones that I actually want to see, because this is that analogy of the bubbles touching. That's kind of Fringe, right? If you remember, Nina does the thing with the 2 snow globes and says, like they come together, but if they come together like this, one of them smashes. Now, but if you imagine, though, them touching, and that concept of weak spots, there are spots where they touch in such a way that there is maybe not a permanent gateway, but there is a soft spot where obviously things can come back and forth between them. And again, I'm talking dimensions now, not timelines.
Yeah, because each dimension has its own principles of space-time, time-space. So
it could be. Absolutely.
Like the Skinwalker Ranch, like you were talking about. That's a great example of what you are speaking of right there.
Well, here, Dawn, I got a question for you because you're in Texas. I got a message from Jimmy. After he listened to the show, I'm just going to go, and I got it because I won't remember. Hold on, I'm scrolling through my messages. And Jim was talking about Texas, and after the conversation we had about Waxahachie, I can never even say that properly, where the super accelerator particle collider thing, whatever, the super collider was supposed to have been built. And he said the city is south of Dallas. The city of Dallas used to be a large city of giants. Just north of Waxahachie, whatever, is Roxwell, Texas, where there's a wall for the city of giants was discovered. And apparently Roswell and Waxahachie have had many weird and unexplainable woo-woo type events over the years. And purportedly there's portals, etc., etc. So it's interesting. So he sent me a bunch of links, and I haven't had a chance to go through the information yet because I've been so ridiculously busy this week. Talking about Roswell, Texas, and giants and all of this stuff.
Yeah, I've long suspected something going on here because even in the hill country, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, in there, we've got like that enchanted rock thing we've got here that looks like it would have to do with civilization of much larger beings, and we have Sasquatch here. I mean, I'd like to look at that stuff. I always have said Texas, has an X right in the center of it, so X marks the spot.
X marks the spot. I started watching, someone brought up Chris and Cherie Gio's latest with a set. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name. And apparently, and I have to admit, I blasted through the first half of it because it really, when I basically did the stop to go along, and you listen to 2 minutes, and you blast forward, and you listen to 2 minutes, and nothing really resonated to me until she got started talking about some of this kind of stuff. And she used different language, different words, but I could see that a lot of the stuff she was talking about was basically this very similar to what we were talking about Sunday night. So yeah. I haven't had a chance to finish it. Again, I've been just so swamped this week. I haven't had a chance to finish the video yet. And that's Gypsy. That's my question. So Gypsy just said, so they found a weak spot and built the collider. Did they? Right? I mean, this is one of those things where you go, okay, these are the questions that I have. And when you watch Stranger Things on season 3, that thing that they're blasting through the rock, that plasma, electron, photon, beam that they're blasting at the rock, when they show it, it looks like the particle, it looks like CERN, a small version of CERN. Several times in the show, they kind of show it head on, and it's all the rings, and it looks exactly like the collider at CERN. And we have that fucking announcement that came out, and now it's gone across several mainstream media outlets have run with the story about, how they're going to try and open a door into a parallel dimension using photons and light and blasting beams, accelerated particle. I'm just like, really? Really? Now here's my question. I didn't get to watch the pre-shows. Rex Bear with Leak Project did a whole series of videos just recently, and he did one I think this morning or maybe last night out where the earthquakes were in California. Was it China Lake? And same thing, there's some big fucking questions about what's going on at China Lake. And he did the one video I watched this morning. He was interviewing a guy. Very, very funny story too. He had just done a live stream, and he goes to walk into a store, and a guy coming out of the store goes, "Hey, Rex, I just finished watching your live stream," right there. And he says, the guy was like, "You're a local?" And the guy sat and did an interview with him, telling him about all the weird ass fucking shit that goes on around this China Lake facility. Well, same thing. There's a shit ton of particle colliders. Berkeley, California has got one of the biggest particle colliders out there. There are several linear colliders in California that we know of. What's under this China Lake? Was that some kind of an experimentation that just so happened to happen literally just when they announced that they're going to start doing this experiment on a super top secret military installation in California, and we have these massive earthquakes that come out of the blue, and Maverick Star just put out a report saying he was analyzing the actual wave patterns And he's saying, this isn't an earthquake. This is not,
Okay.
it doesn't have an earthquake signature. It looks like a nuclear blast.
So I want to throw out there for you.
Yeah.
This would be good to talk to Jeff about with his buddy that, you know, did the whole background on Philadelphia, what happened to the Titans,
Yep.
these beings, and how they have been put into another dimension, basically. Yep. And I feel that this is all about bringing them back. And they, you know, there's a whole, you know, the language of the muse is what we call this, all the architecture that describes this in Philadelphia. And so Jeff would be perfect to talk about. I think California is an interesting place. Arizona, you know, all up in there.
There's a whole bunch of interesting places in there.
You got testimony of the tall whites that come in and out during the full moon, and you know, you've got a lot of things that are underground there, and I feel that it's probably all tied together. And then you've got this whole, like, you know, we know there's certain locations of CERN, but then we find out that if you look at Google Earth, you'll see where we've got rings in different cities. Like, they could be shooting this thing off, and it's just like a...
Yep. And we have to remember, there are certain experiments that they're running.
Yeah.
Out, fully said, where they're shooting protons through the Earth to other colliders. So the one, it's in Michigan. Which was the one in Michigan? The big one in Michigan.
Fermi?
It's Fermi Labs in Michigan, but specifically the one in Michigan was shooting these beams way down, like hundreds of miles. And when this Fermi Labs, yes, Joanna, thank you. When the announcement was made that they were doing this exercise, this experiment, there were several people who were like, hello, New Madrid fault line, what the fuck are you doing firing photons? And they were showing the pathway, and it was like, here's Fermi Labs in Michigan, and this was I can't remember where it was they were shooting it to. And it was literally right on a direct path line to the fault line. It's like, are they trying to set off the New Madrid fault? Are they deliberately trying to trigger it, or are they that fucking stupid? So we have this, and there's New York City, Brookhaven Labs in New York City is another one full of particle colliders. They've got their experiments going on too. These are just the ones that we know about.
You know, and what if they're syncing them all up in every timeline?
Could be.
See what I mean? And, you know, I just think we're in a crunch phase right here where we're really starting to see certain spots around the planet that are compromised to an extent. But I really do think that key piece that Jeff and his buddy talk about has everything to do with this.
Well,
because even Benjamin Franklin was in on the deal, man. That guy's a total sellout.
There's too many questions. There's too many questions. I think that the hypothesis that there are thin points between, we know there are. At least let's just say we're pretty fucking sure there are. The ancient stories talk about it. The ancient stories talk about people being able to drum and chant and open up rock faces and walk in and walk out on the other side of the world. The ancient shaman used to be able to do this with music, etc. But you had to be at specific places. And when you came out at specific places, right? There's enough stories now of people who have crossed over, who have had these experiences where they've crossed over into some other place and had discussions with beings, other beings. They can't all be fake. This is one of those things, like they can't all be fake. And this isn't just a rash of new things that have happened, just coming out in the last 2 or 3 years. These stories, some of these stories are from like the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. You have stories that have come out in the 1800s where people have come and gone and just appeared and reappeared. And we all watched, last year, we watched John Carter of Mars. What's the premise of John Carter of Mars? It's exact same premise. That is Barsoom is Mars in a parallel dimension. And on that parallel dimension, Mars is fully populated with several different types of people, alien species, if you will. And how does he get there? Well, he's got a little device, and he was able to use that device to open the doorway to go cut between the one to the other. That is not a new story. I don't know when John Carter of Mars was written, but we're talking Burroughs' stuff is like the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. This was before we had a concept, we're told, of technology being able to do these things. Yet there are multiple stories like this that came out even as early as the 1800s.
Jerry Wills had that experience in 1998 when he went to Oruro, Peru. I can't say it. Muru, Peru.
That's the doorway, the rock doorway, right?
At the doorway, and he talked to locals there, and they asked him. Linda Moulton has a really good interview on YouTube with him.
Yeah.
And they gave him the chance, and he disappeared, and somebody said, like, oh, what are you doing here? And they were able to communicate, and they talked about this birthing of a universe. It was just like a game to them, and they didn't realize that it had become sentient and had life, which was supposedly our universe, but who can say? But the point is that it's a solid rock door, and the indigenous people of the area have talked about seeing giants actually come out of the door. Yeah. Right? And so the chanting, so if we're talking frequencies and dimension, and the perspective, you're talking dimensions. So everybody talks about raising your vibration and stuff like that. Well, if you can chant and tune the frequency, like Don was talking about the TV or your radio, right? You just put your focus into one frequency. He really didn't go anywhere. He was probably in the same space. He was just in a different dimension. It was a fascinating story. I think it was 98 it happened, if I remember correctly.
Well, so when Nick worked in the Congo, his two foremen were two guys from Syria. And they were from kind of outback Syria, if you will. And they had some amazing stories, because you sit around, you got nothing else to do. You sit in your chat all the time, right? And they swap stories about what it was like growing up in Syria versus, Nick growing up in BC, etc. And they told him stories that were just, and he said, like, one of the guys said that there is a cave in the mountains of Syria. And everyone knows in that local area that door opens once a year. Once a year, the door in that cave just opens.
Wow.
And you can go in, and then it closes, and it does not open again for another year. And apparently some guy came, and he lugged up the mountain all the provisions you could possibly need for a year, like food, water, everything. And he went in, and door opened a year later, and he came out. And he had completely changed. He had all this knowledge. He was like kind of like a ranting madman in a certain way, but he had like all this incredible knowledge of what he had learned while he'd been in the cave. So these are stories. This is in the backwoods of Syria. And Hikmed swore up and down, no, this is absolutely true. I know for a fact this is not just some wild story that you tell, strangers. Okay? Merce, exactly. The war in Syria, was it because there was a gate there? Well, because there was a gate there. We've hypothesized that a lot. In the Middle East, there are some gates there. They hypothesized heavily that there was some kind of a gateway system in Iraq, and that was one of the main reasons why they went into Iraq. right? So these are the questions that we have, right?
Reminds me of the series Dark. Has anybody watched that on Netflix yet?
I haven't watched it yet.
It's really, really good. And you have to pay attention very, very closely because there's a cave, a natural thinning that just happens to be near a nuclear plant. But there's like a natural thinning, and it's a time loop. It's a triplicated time loop. You guys were talking about the threes the other day, and it's 33 years apart in this series. So it links like 2019. It goes all the way back to the 50s anyways. And it's 3 different time loops, but it goes back to that causal thing I was speaking about last time, cause and effect, because it's an excellent show to show cause and effect and how the future affects the past. Like, if you can't wrap your head around it, they really embody that in that show. Nice. And it's really, really good. And their whole basis of that show is not duality. It's the triquetra, the 3 Vesica Pisces that form the Trinity knot. And what one of the guys, the timekeeper in the movies or in the show, says, everything appears as opposite pairs, but that's wrong. Nothing can be truly complete. I wrote it down. I'm reading it. Nothing can truly be complete without the 3rd dimension. There isn't only an up and a down, but there is a center as well. So I'm wondering.
Interesting.
If we should be, we're always talking about centering, not grounding, but centering. Maybe that's where the crossover point is, centering, right? Because there's the Trinity of.
What do we say? Everywhere. It's not about the opposite ends of the spectrum. Divine feminism, divine masculine. No, it's about the center.
Right. Right. So that's all I had. Watch Dark. It's really, really good.
Oh, well, I'm going to check it out. It's on Netflix. Okay, so new Netflix show to watch for me. Good stuff. Oi, Ben.
Hello. Yeah. So I've been listening the whole time. I was filling out a grant. So two things. What I find interesting is this subject, like this topic that we're talking about. Yeah. And I'd like to also just point out, at this point in time, all these psychedelics are starting to be like legalized or decriminalized and things like that. At the same time that these quantum states and merged timelines / dimensions are starting to come through. And also, I'd like to point out the levity declaration from the 1700s, because what that declaration essentially did was took the observer out of the equation and left you with what you were observing. So in that Trinity, we were always talking about this. There might be 2 things, but what's looking at the 2 things? Yeah. We always take ourselves out of the equation. It's always the thing that's occurring, and we always negate ourselves out of it. Always. So the Trinity is always I guess you could sit there and say it's like the manifesting into, so like universe, then you've got material world, but there's something or someone that has to observe it for it to be real. So there always has to be 3. Just the same, instead of it being 12, it's 13, because someone has to see the 12. So could it be that essentially that declaration, that treaty, is falling away without the descriptives, because the descriptives have been negated because of no study. So now we're feeling extra lost, right? We're all talking about how the powers that be are kind of losing their grasp, their grip, or even their actual comprehension of what's even going on. So are they kind of legalizing and decriminalizing, like the Delphis and the alchemists, to be able to come out again, so that the visions start occurring, or we're able to to kind of correlate. It's like Joe Rogan was talking about the other day. There's like the jaguars in the Amazon find this plant that's high in DMT, and they seem to ingest a lot of it and basically lie down and trip balls. So the one of the thought processes is while the jaguar's tripping balls, there is also the potential that while someone else is essentially tripping balls or taking medicine, that they are actually interfacing in those worlds. And that's where these totems and things like that actually come from, is in that, not so much the upside down world, but in that kind of context. You know, there's a veil that's actually separating us from, like what Dawn says, like all those things are there. It's just whether we can see them, whether they're in the light, spectrum that we see, or within the sound spectrum that we hear, or in the smell spectrum that we smell, or in the taste spectrum in which we taste. Yep. So there's my rant.
Well, you know, Tesla, 3 6s and 9s, right? He always swore the magic was.
Well, that's exactly right.
They're the multiples.
We'll see, and what we kind of have been taught is 3 is the Trinity, 6 don't touch it, and 9 perfection.
Interesting.
Why 6? Basically because the Bible says that the number of the beast is 666. But then anything with a connotation of 6 in the parables within the Bible are the shit that we're not supposed to do. And if you actually go through it, it's like the Lord's Prayer is like, I don't know who reads the Bible and knows this stuff, but if you look at the Lord's Prayer, it's actually in like chapter 6, verse 6, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, that's something that's not supposed to be said. And that code with the 6s and the 3s and the 9s are due to those alchemical things, I guess, those structures that we're talking about.
I tell ya.
Well, see, Bassie's just said 10 is God. But just quickly, 10 is God. You know, we've talked about that whole 9/11. You know, they skipped God, da-da-da-da-da. But if you look at it as binary code, there's the 10 is the pulse and the pause. So the 1 and then the 0.
Yep.
So it's the, you know.
The observer.
Yeah. Well, the observer being given the time to observe, right? The pause. Yep. We were sort of mucking around with the girls in the astrology chat earlier, and that, you know, it's one of those sort of things. It's like the Fibonacci sequence, 0, 1, 1, and so on.
Yeah.
So, it gets very interesting.
Ben, what is the significance of the Fibonacci sequence? I've never really understood it.
It seems to be the fractal pattern in which everything follows.
Okay.
In nature, like petals on seashells.
Yeah.
The way petals and seeds form in, for example, in sunflowers, they do the fractal pattern out, which is an exact mathematical formula.
Well, it's
exact measurement.
Yeah, that follows that 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, so on, so on, so on, and so forth.
It is. I can never remember them all. It's too many.
You add the number, right?
I mean, but sorry.
I'm sorry. You add the number to the previous number, right, to get the Fibonacci sequence. So you start with 0 plus 1 is 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2, and then
1 is
3, and then 3 plus 2 is 5.
2 plus 1 is 3. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I gotcha. That makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
But
and
then
that
supports the fact that we may be in a holographic matrix then, because it's all seems digital.
Well, but it's kind of that whole thing's not really a theory. Like, it is holographic. It is light reflecting. Right. That's what it is. So that is what we live in. It's you know, it's the overcomplication of why it's there that's got us all buggered.
Yeah. And the definition
and you know, the overcomplicate. Well, then but that's left up to all sorts of interpretations. See, that's why, like, when quantum physicists sit there and say we find code in the universe, it shows up as zeros and ones, and you know, you've heard me talk. It's like, well, those are not old numbers; they're your fucking numbers.
Yeah.
So how can you see your numbers in the universe? And if the actual natural code is 0113, then it's not 01001110.
Right.
So what their findings or what their explanations of their findings are kind of go against what thousands of years of where their subject matter actually came from. So it's literally like, you know, you look at a table, and the closer you look at a table, then you're looking at its, you know, the wood, and then you're looking at the particles of the wood. Are you looking at the table at all anymore? Like,
yeah,
it's not, you know what I mean? Then you're looking into the particle world, right? And then if you look smaller, then you're in the quantum world. But it's still all just an inverse of the universe. And it's just being literally overcomplicated.
Hey Ben,
I'm finding it real funny that.
Hold on,
yeah.
Star. Just give me a second. Ben's got about a 5-second lag on us, so you got to give him a second to actually hear you, because he's about 5 seconds behind. Go ahead, Star.
Okay, I was just gonna say, but you were talking about, Ben, that does the binary code. Remember the episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation? The binary beings that were there. Yep. And
yep.
Programming the ones and zeros into, and they were docking for repairs or whatever, and they were actually leading them that code to sort of like reactivate them because they were dying. They were trying to, it made me think of it.
I haven't seen that episode in a long, long time.
Yeah, I've watched it a few times, and when you guys
that
Ben, it made me think of that. It's like there's something to that stuff they're telling us.
Well, that's why I find it really funny that these ethnobotany and the psychedelics are starting to rear their heads again publicly, because we talk about. We've been talking about doorways and portals and all that kind of stuff, and you know, your definition of hologram, what's your definition of portal, what's your definition of dimension, you know. I can't remember which compound it was, but when they were doing tests on, I can't remember which substance it was now. One of these hallucinogenic ones, but one of the compounds they wanted to call telepathine.
Really?
They thought they discovered a new one, and they wanted to call it, because when it was when whatever it was that they were ingesting, I can't remember whether it was LSD or mushrooms or ayahuasca. But one of those, when they found the compound, what was happening was these people were having mass group experiences. Like they were all in a realm together.
Huh.
Their stories coincided. No one was having a separate trip. So they wanted to call it telepathine because they actually thought that this thing was somehow
and
creating a shared experience.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to know what drug it was or what substance it was that they were testing.
So I wouldn't be surprised if what they're trying to do is work some stuff out themselves.
Okay, so Britt just said it was DMT.
Hence the reason of the
Britt just said it was DMT.
Dimethyltryptamine, they wanted to call they wanted to call telepathy.
I think they should have. Telepathy just much catchier. Much catchier.
But then you might have everyone wanting to do it. And then you wouldn't be able to like sell them a phone line so that you could charge them for it and then create the internet and charge them for it. You just give them the distraction and premise of real-time interaction. Yeah, here's your real-time, interaction with a 5-second delay. Although you did post that post with the pigeon. You did post that post with the pigeon.
I laughed and I laughed
and the traveling of data.
Yep. It's faster to send the data.
I cracked up at how long it took, and then I was like, oh, that pigeon took ages, and then I was like, what? Only 4% of the data. Maybe that's why they're trying to put 5G in. They're just trying to beat pigeons.
That's right. Their pigeons are going to put the 5G out of jobs. So just to explain the meme that I'd posted, was a story about out of South Africa. It was a group of tech guys, and they were trying to transfer vast packages of data. And it was going so slowly that one of them made the joke that, I'm sure we could send this shit faster if we got some carrier pigeons. And they downloaded it onto like a memory stick, and they strapped it to the pigeon, and the pigeon took 2 hours to fly 60 kilometers, and he got there, and in the same data that they were trying to transfer over the lines was only 4% done. And the pigeon actually delivered the data faster than the internet. I love that story. I'm sorry, that's one of my favorite stories. We got pigeons all up on my roofs, covered in pigeons. We got all kinds of pigeons. Just need to teach them to send messages to people. You train some pigeons too there, Ben, and I'll train pigeons, and maybe we can send some really long distance messages via pigeon. Might be a while. It might be a while in between though. Just saying. Might be a while. So.
Or not.
Or not. Maybe they'll just find a portal and teleport there. Could happen.
Just give yours some LSD at the same time I give mine some LSD.
Yeah, and they'll both end up at Dawn's house. Instead of, getting
quantum entanglement.
Yeah, quantum entanglement. That's right. Quantum entanglement pigeons. There we go. No problem. I don't know.
I have these 2 doves that hang out in my backyard on my power line, and they just stare at me. They've been there forever, like years. And then we go to Sedona, and Anna and I are laying in the bed, and I hear this, the same sound that they make here. But her and I are laying there taking a nap, and I said, "What is that?" She goes, "I think those are owls." I'm like, "But it's daytime." And so anyway, I went out there and looked in the trees, and it was 2 doves. And I thought, well, that is just interesting. It's like they're following me.
They're following you, chick. You find out that they're like military-grade tracking.
Yeah. Well,
I'm glad you said that, Dee, because I wanted to.
Military-grade tracking doves.
What can I say? They were there.
The bugs. Bugging is so last generation. We now have tracking doves.
Crazy.
Yeah, we don't do moths no more.
Yeah, that's right.
But the actual scary thing is they actually have drones that look like little birds or little doves. I mean, literally.
And look like mosquitoes and
Bessie, even better. They actually have drone moths, and they have been inputting computer chips into pigeons, like real pigeons.
Yeah, also.
So don't worry about the drones.
But also like bugs. I worry about that drone, because a drone the size of a pigeon can carry enough fucking C4 to blow me to bits, while a fucking roach flying around or the bug flying around can't, right? They can only carry poison.
Okay, I'm just gonna say
Wow.
I choose to think that it's Mother Nature, and I'm aligning with her. I mean I know what y'all are saying, but
We're just making a joke, Dawn. We're just a joke. We're just.
I know, but you can't rule anything out these days, okay? You just can't.
That's why I said I'm glad Dee said it.
Hey, it's okay. Then that means they've been watching me for a while, and knock yourself out.
Have a good time. Yep.
Yeah, I just always take those as signs that you're doing the right thing.
Do you guys actually know the "Good night, Mr. FBI guy" meme? Like, every time you close your laptop, you say "Good night, Mr. FBI guy."
Oh, I have on occasion talked to them through my webcam, and there was about 2 months ago. My computer was doing something really, really weird, and I literally was like to look right in the camera and be like, "Listen, you fuckers. I have work to do. You want to spy on me? Don't fucking care? Get out of my way."
Well, your machine will run harder when something's accessing it.
Oh, I know. It's okay, Dawn. You missed it in the pre-show. I come in, John and Clive are sitting there talking computer stuff, as they do. And I'm like, oh, reminder, John, I have a problem. My secondary drive is like seriously almost full. And John and I had been working on my computer, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. And I was saying to him, like, I was getting close to halfway. And I have a 2 terabyte drive. I'm about getting close to halfway. And he was like, oh, no, you got lots and lots of room. So I go up the screen share and I show him, I'm like, I have like literally like 54 gigabytes of space left on my 2 terabyte drive. I'm like, ah! Then we start moving all these files around. I'm like, yeah. No, my computer's not working very well at the moment. Well, could be the FBI guy, CIA guy listening in and meddling around, or it could also be the fact that I had way too many files, backup files that needed to be deleted.
I told you I took mine to Geek Squad when I went to see Maurice, so they had it for like a whole week.
Yep.
And they moved my files off and then just reset the whole thing, and it runs like a beautiful dream.
There are days when I think I need to do that with mine.
Yeah, I just had to reload everything.
Actually, mine is so dirty again. She is so dirty. I have so much dust in my drives. Said to Nick just last week, the last 2 sandstorms we've had, I'm like, go to the computer shop, get a can of air, please. I'm going to have to blow out this computer again. It's really, really dirty.
I think they said there was so much hair in mine they could have closed a small dog. They were like making fun of me and shit. They were like, "You're from Texas?" I'm like, "Yeah." And well, damn, we've never seen this much hair.
It's okay. Nick, when he came back from the Congo, his laptop wasn't working very well. So he takes it into a buddy of my dad's who does like laptop cleaning repairs. And my dad says to him, "Look, John, just look at it. Just crack it open and tell, like, is it worth fixing? Or does he just get rid of it and just let us know." So his buddy says, yeah, no problem. I'll crack it open. And we get a phone, we go back home 2 blocks away. We get a phone call 2 hours later, and this guy, John, calls up my dad and goes, "Where the fuck has this computer been?" And my dad's like, "Well, it just came back from the Congo." And the guy's like, "There is so much red clay dust in this computer." He says, "I cracked it open and was like, what the hell is in here?" Like, and it's the clay there is red, like screaming orange red. And apparently every single component was covered in layer upon thick layers of this dust. And I was like, I don't know how it still turns on. He says, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean it. It's probably going to take me a day or 2. I'm going to clean it, and then we'll power it up and see if it actually needs to be replaced." And once he cleaned it like every board, everything was just spotless, and it worked just like new again. It was like, oh, okay, right. So need to clean those computers out. Get some air into the poor things. I've got a fucking mosquito bite on my forehead. Fuckers. Grrr, it's driving me frickin' nuts.
Yeah, I invested in some Melaleuca insect spray.
I don't have my balm. Usually I have a balm sitting here that I could put on there, and I don't have anything.
Melaleuca is a really good brand. They don't have, you know, I told you I went to them for all my cleaning products and my laundry stuff. And
Toothpaste, Danny.
I don't have toothpaste. That's the other end of the house, darling.
Oh, okay.
If I did that, I'd get my SOS serum, and that would take care of it. But that's also at the other end of the house, unfortunately.
Yeah. It'll stop itching, but you'll have a big white spot in the middle of your forehead.
Big sploosh of toothpaste. No, thank you. No.
Well,
yeah.
no.
Well, speaking of pus, etc. No, let's not go there.
You know what? It's funny. I've got a little melia on my eye, and I was going to try to pick it off, and I thought, no, I better not. I'll go to my doctor. He wouldn't do it. He says, I'll get you an appointment with an ophthalmologist. You know what amelia is, right? They're the little white bumps that are hard.
Yep.
Okay.
We call those styes.
Okay.
No. They're not inside the eye, Dawn. Styes are in. Amelias are they're on the outside on the eyelid, and they're like a little tiny white. I've got one on one of my eyelids. I've got one right now on one of my eyelids.
Yes, my doctor said I have to go to the ophthalmologist. So he phoned today with my appointment. So I'm in Canada, guys, and we have this great medical system, but there's often a wait. Anybody want to guess what the wait is?
A year?
Yep, May. My appointment's in May. Can you believe that? No freaking way. I'm going to do my own legwork, find a doctor that's open, and just get him to get the referral there. Or go to a dermatologist. Do you think a dermatologist would do it?
I haven't done mine yet because I've just had shows and all the rest of it. The last thing you want is a big welt on your eyelid, right?
Right.
I've actually pulled all my own ones out myself.
Have you? What do you use? A scalpel or a pin or?
I have surgical extractors that are like tweezers that are like fine little points. Like you could literally almost go right into a pore. They're so sharp, and I literally just get in and hook it and just pull it out. It's not pleasant. It's not nice, but it gets it done.
I'll get some of those if I can find them. So you know the expression, everything comes in threes. So about 3 weeks ago, my husband was driving to work and he heard a rattle on his tire. So he pulled over and the lug nuts were loose and he went, okay. So he was trying to save $50. And what he did was he changed the winter tires himself to the summer tires. So then he gets back on the 401, the highway. He's driving like 100 kilometers per hour and he hears the rattle again. So he pulls off. The lug nuts are loose again. So he tightens them up and he gets to work. It's only about 2 kilometers and a couple have fallen off. So he phones the Toyota dealer and they say, okay, bring the car in. And he says, well, I can't drive. They said, well, just keep stopping every little bit and tighten up the lug nuts. So he gets in the car. He's driving just on a residential highway, not like a super highway. He gets to the Toyota dealer, and when he gets there, the tire has been hung on by one lug nut. All of them sheared off. He's lucky he didn't kill himself.
Holy shit.
So he gets that. So they go to repair it, and of course the studs have to be replaced because they're stripped. I'm telling you this because a lot of things have happened, but anyways, did you know, like when you get your bill for your vehicle with your tires, at the bottom it always says come back in a week to get it torqued again. My husband is not handy that way. He didn't know he had to torque the nuts, and that's why he was in trouble, because he didn't torque the nuts properly. So I'm sending a warning out to everybody with a vehicle that you're supposed to go back after a week whenever you get any tire rotation, tire changes, stuff like that.
We've never done that. Never. I can guarantee you right now that we've never. Now maybe Nick pulls out with it and torques it himself. I'll ask him because we've never done that. I can guarantee it.
So I got a text from my sister yesterday.
I forgot.
Sorry. So I get a text from my sister yesterday. She says, yeah, I was driving to work and I heard a rattle on my car. And so I took it to the Canadian Tire, and the guy said, I'm surprised your tire didn't fall off. So there's number 2. And then I went to take my son to a guitar lesson. I've never been there before. My husband was away camping. And I crashed my car. Somebody crashed into me. I was making a left-hand turn, and the person decided to go around me and T-bone my car. So my question is why do we have that expression? Is it superstition? Everything comes in threes? Because we keep talking about threes tonight.
Well, I hope not, because our truck, who we affectionately call the Hulk because it's green, the Hulk went dead a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. No start. And Nick just replaced the battery in it about 4 months ago. Go in, it's the starter and the radiator had to be fixed and replaced. So you're just sitting there going like, oh fuck, you know, like luckily here Malta's a hell of a lot fucking cheaper than North America. Getting the starter replaced, a new battery, a new secondary battery, and a new radiator put on was like 450 euros. I just fucking couldn't have afforded to have it done in Canada. Nick's pulling into the driveway yesterday, about 2 days ago. Literally, thank God it happened literally in front of our house. The right front tire blew up.
What?
Like, blew up. Like, boom, the whole side ripped out of it. The entire side ripped out of the tire. It luckily, like I said, it was right in front of our house. So we like very, very slowly backed the car into the driveway. And we've been warning, he's been telling the Hulk ever since, it's kind of like, no more. That was it. That was your 2 checkups. There's no more of this. Like, no more. So they better not come in threes, because I don't want to. I can't afford another one.
Well, then Darwin. So it cost us $2,700 because the bearing was the bearing and the back plate. I don't know, the car parts had to be replaced, and then he had to get new rims because the rim was damaged, and because it was a Toyota, and when he bought the car, it was aftermarket rims.
Yep.
They recommended, of course, to me, it's the upsell, right? Everybody upsells you. So they recommended Toyota rims. So it was $2,700. Then he went to the dump last week and he got a nail in the tire, but it was in the sidewall, so he couldn't fix the tire. But then they wouldn't sell him 1 tire. They said, no, you have to get 2 tires.
That shit.
So
no.
That's what is that true? I mean, I tried to figure it out on the internet, but
they do recommend that you get 2 tires, but if the 1 tire, if they're both relatively new, then but yes, you should have matching tires. I know that part. That I know, like front or back, whatever.
You know, the universe has a way of looking after you, though, because I was so excited because I got $2,800 back on my income taxes this year because I had a loss because I started my business, right? And it all went to paying for the fucking tires. It's just, life can be funny that way. Anyways, I derailed us from the dimensional conversation, which was really good.
No, you didn't. And now we're done computers. Now we're talking cars. You know. Fred's we're going to talk about poop.
Don't be afraid.
Listen, it's probably too late now, but I've got a question for you, Danny.
Yeah, darling.
Why the hell would you talk to a nut? It's too late, you see. It's gone now.
Oh, bad. That's like a dad joke. Seriously. That's it. Clive, you're muted. That's all there is to it.
Cut off for life.
As it cut off until at least next show, if anything. No, it's been crazy stuff. Like I said, and this was, although the tire did happen after Mercury retrograde, so I don't know if Mercury affects tires the same way it fucking affects everything else like electronics. But just one thing after another. And like I said, everyone I was speaking to is the same thing. Cars breaking down, washing machines breaking down. It's been like a litany of it. They always come in like big groups. It's like nothing happens. And then everyone is like, oh my God, my washing machine broke. Oh my God, my car broke down. Oh my God, like everything just seems to all break. My computer broke down, my phone, whatever.
I just saw the appliance guy leave because my washing machine quit working. So, yeah.
I'm borrowing a washing machine off a friend of mine because ours died last month.
Well, you said there, that's akin to, you've got to load it in, and then electricity fucking goes out. You're not really you're not really paying attention to the weather or nothing. Then it's like, oh, great. I have clothes in the wash. Yeah, you just have to.
Just going to sit there.
Yeah.
Extra clean. They're just going to get extra soaked. It's like a really good pre-soak. That's All Star. It's a really good pre-soak.
Did you say, Dawn, that your washing machine stopped working? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it was hilarious because I was in the office and Christy's in here, and all of a sudden you hear this, and I thought it was coming from the ceiling, so I thought it was the fucking air conditioner. So I'm like trying to turn off the air conditioner. I'm running outside, turning everything off on the box, and then turning it back on, and then I turn the AC on and do it again. Well, ended up it was the fucking washing machine. And it was clogged, and it was beat. The pipes in the walls were doing that. So they had to unclog that because it, of course, it has hair in it because I have
there's probably hair in it.
Yeah. So now we saw how he did it, so I'll never have to call again. I saw what he did.
Yeah, no, we had that happen. The old washing machine that happened to us last year, and the same thing, except that ours are all like portable type washing machines where you just put it into the drain pipe goes into the laundry sink, and the blockage was so bad it was saying Nick had to go up there with like a plumber's snake and pull out and here well, we have dog hair too, right? It's the dust. It's all the sandstorms and the dust storms that we've been having, and now we've got Mount Etna. Everything's been gray for like 2 days because of Mount Etna. It just comes out like sludge. It was unbelievable how much was in it. It was like, so we learned to do that like every 6 months, like strip out the hoses and completely clean them out.
Yeah, I have to do that too. It's because the animals, I wash so many blankets, I get a lot of dirt. It's just gets in everything, so. Yeah, the joy, I would die.
And I have so much dog.
He thinks I would die. Yeah, I'd die without my washing machine. And I die without my bathtub. Those are the two things I would die. I would die.
You need to get like a really good sized walk-in shower made so like you can hose the dogs, like walk the dogs into the shower and just hose them all off.
Remember what I told you guys, if you buy appliances, buy the old ones. They're built well and you can repair them yourselves.
Yep.
I'm gonna do a plug for LG because I've had these washer and dryer since 2012. They're not front loader, they're top load, but they got the big barrel. I wash every day. I wash the shit out of everything all the time, and I've only had like 3 service calls, and they're minor.
Well, when I left Canada, one of the things that I was so sad about is I had a 25-year-old, help me, Nancy, what was the Eaton's brand of Viking? I had a 25-year-old Viking washing machine. That was like one of the biggest ones they ever made. That thing was a brute. Never had a problem. Never did anything wrong. Like, I think once Nick replaced a belt in it or something. Like, it was like, those things were indestructible, and I literally was crushed. Because I mean, you can't sell them, and I gave it to a friend of mine who actually has a dog grooming business. She bought it just for all the dog stuff to put in her basement. The old stuff's the best. The old stuff's the best.
My fridge is Viking. Sorry.
What was that, Nancy?
No, go ahead.
I was just saying my fridge is a Viking. If you can imagine, it's got to be forever old because Eaton's been out of business like thousands of years ago.
20 years at least.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just don't like the old washing machines with the center agitator in them. I can't stand those things.
Oh, fuck
Oh,
yeah.
I wish I had one.
I'd give anything to have my old washing machine back.
Yeah, me too.
They actually got shit clean. It actually used to get your jeans clean. Your
It
blanket.
filled the tub with water. Mine has this efficiency thing where it has a sensor and it only loads enough water to cover the clothes. So I always put it on super heavy and make it pretend like it's got lots of clothes in there, because it hardly, and I can't dye anything. I used to dye all my blacks. You know how all your black clothes fade? I used to go buy that dye.
Dye-Lon?
Yeah, and you do it with in a top-loading agitator machine like Dawn hates. You can't do it. I can't figure out how to do it in a high-efficiency one, and they're horrible to fix because the bearings take a lot of weight on the bottom because they rotate in a different way.
Yeah.
My machine is gigantic.
I have a little European machine. That makes me angry as anything.
Yeah, I wash big blankets and, all kinds of shit. I wash everything. I should be on a commercial for washing, honestly.
Dawn, my washing machine is so small, I can fit my king-size bottom sheet, top sheet, and that's it. Not a pillowcase, just my king-size bottom sheet and top sheet. That is the only thing that will fit in the machine. That's how small it is. 4 kids, 2 dogs. Do you want to guess how many loads of laundry I do a week?
Oh, just nonstop, I'm sure, like me.
Well, I've got my girls doing their own laundry. I'm like, you know what? You guys are old enough. You're now in charge of doing your own laundry. So.
Yeah.
No, Linda said it though. It's before everything was what's the word? Planned obsolescence. And planned obsolescence is the bane of our existence. Our, as in the collective whole on this planet. It's the bane of our existence. And it was done deliberately. And I put out an article just a little while ago, pardon me, talking about the whole thing with light bulbs. When light bulbs were first made, they lasted like 5,000 hours, 25,000 hours, 30,000 hours. And there's a fire hall somewhere in the States that's had the same light bulb on for 100 years or something stupid like that, and it's never been changed. And it's on. It's just on.
But isn't that like a symptom of this constant growth system, that we need to have debt or interest on our money, that this whole sham or scam can continue on, right? You never have enough money to say you retire, you have everything you need, right? Yep. Anything can be broken anytime.
Yep. And now it's just gotten to extremes. Like, I mean, it was bad. I can remember my mom ranting about it 20 years ago, but now it's just ridiculous. You buy an appliance, it doesn't last. You're lucky if a toaster lasts you a year. If a toaster lasts me a year, I'm like, woohoo, I got a whole year out of this one. Just nothing lasts, and it's made to break. That's exactly it. Capitalism. Corporatism and capitalism, consumerism, and they're all rolled into one package, and that's how they maintain the money flow, right? The money flow. And then you need more money. So you take out a loan. So like Bossy said, now you've got debt. You got to pay your interest, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time you buy a car and you've paid it off, it's toast. Like, you might as well just ditch it. I can remember the car that Nick and I had. By the time we'd paid it off, it was worthless. It was on paper, it was completely worthless. And it was pretty much like run to the ground. We bought
I have older cars, but I take care of my cars.
Yeah, well, and older cars though, but that's the trick, right? So, example, we bought, when that car broke, we bought a minivan. But same thing, when we bought it for cash, like for like $700 cash. It was already 20 years old or something. Our car now, the Hulk that we drive now, is 18 years old and is a trooper. This is a Isuzu Trooper. And you know what? The older cars, just at least they have some life in them. Do you know what I'm saying? Here, Jenny is just going to laugh. We have the Marudis. I don't know if you guys have. We don't have Marudis in North America, do we? They are what we call the divers Jeeps, and they're a Jeep. They're like literally a fucking Jeep. 2 seats at the front. Sometimes they'll have a bench seat at the back, but a lot of times they have 2 bench seats along the long ways facing in towards each other, and they're just the wire frames, and they'll have like either a hard top or a soft top that goes over top of them. And Marudis here are everywhere. And the reason why everyone has them is because they're indestructible. Jenny's got a Marudi that she picked up, and I think hers is 20 years old, if not 25. And there's 1,000 parts for them. Anyone can fix them. They have a big engine space, so it's really easy to get into. Unlike the new cars where everything is like, so you can't even freaking get into it to fix it yourself. And the Marudis just drive. They just fucking go. They're virtually indestructible, but it is like driving a Jeep, like really, really hard on your back.
That's why I hated getting in this car accident. So I had my signal on to turn right, and at the last minute I decided to turn left. So it was a stupid decision. And it was a 17-year-old behind me thought I was turning right, so he decided to go around me in oncoming traffic, right? But because I changed my mind at the last minute, I turned left, he T-boned me and ripped off the whole front end of my car. My car is a Honda Pilot, and it's 5 years old, and it only has 35,000 kilometers on it. So it's like, and I take care of it like Dawn takes care of her stuff. I take care of mine too. I've done all my maintenance, everything. It's a perfect car. And my Hondas, I always buy Hondas, they last forever. I could drive this to 300,000 kilometers. Like the body will fail well before the car will. So I'm just waiting for the estimate. And I hope they don't write it off, because I'll never get the value of my car back, because it's 5 years old. It's a 2014, but most people would have 120,000 kilometers on it by now, right? I only have 35,000 on it. So that's the only thing that's really shitty about getting into the car accident. But it was a young kid too, 17. Poor thing. No, he only had his license for 6 months. He got out of the car, and I thought he was going to cry. So, like, I'm not one of these kind of people that's going to yell at somebody because mistakes happen, right? And I just said, how old are you? He said 17. I said, okay, just calm down. We'll get this all worked out here. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. And when we went to the collision reporting center, the cop there says, Jesus, I wish everybody was as nice as you guys. Even his mom even gave me a ride home.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Because I had no vehicle, and I got this Ford Flex rental vehicle, but I have to say, dealing with the insurance has been a pleasure, but cross your fingers for me, guys. I want my vehicle back. I don't want to write off. I want them to repair it.
See, they do that a lot these days. That's my big thing, because I drive a 2003 Mazda Tribute, and it was rated #1 in Consumer Reports for like 3 or 4 years. It's like a military vehicle. And so when I got clean, of course, I was driving a Beetle Bug, and everybody in the hood knew Dawn's freaking vehicle. So my parents were like, that thing's out of here, right? So we go sell it, and my mom gives me this one. It had 47,000 miles on it. She gave it to me in 2010. 7 years later, only had 47,000 miles on it. And I have it to this day, and it only has 100,000 miles on it. And then when my mother died, she had her vehicle. She got after she gave me this one. And it's a 2010, and it only has 27,000 miles on it. And it's a Nissan Rogue. But it's one of them fancier, newer, kind, like the beginnings of that. Yep. So it took me a while to get used to it, because I wasn't used to that. But, yeah.
Listen, our Trooper is 19 years old, and I think it has less than 50,000 kilometers on it. Only been driven in Malta. The island's only this fucking big. Like, seriously, 50,000 kilometers is a lot of fucking driving. It's the joke here. cars are stupidly expensive here, like really expensive here. But you can get a really good old car that's literally been driven by a little old lady, and it'll have like, you know, it'll be a 12-year-old car and it'll have 15,000 kilometers on it. Easily.
Read Deb's comment, Danny. That's funny.
I'm sorry, y'all. Hold on.
This is, we have an old Subaru Outback. Love that car. I can stuff a ton of shit in the back when we visit the kids 1,000 miles away. One guy said the new Subarus look like a spaceship fucked a car. It's covered in computer shit, including screens for the back seat, ports to plug into, and so on. Yeah. Well, that's the only thing that I don't like about our car is it was a very like upgraded model when it first came out, so it's all computerized, and that's just I'd like to go back to the old cars before they had computer chips in them, and that just made everything ridiculous.
I have to say to you real quick, that's funny when who was that said that, yeah, that it looks like that the Subaru looks like a spaceship fucked a car. You really grabbed my funny bone.
Yeah.
I was just writing in the chat, my airbags didn't go off because they were under recall and I hadn't taken it in to get it fixed yet. But somebody told me that they write cars off now when the airbags go off because now it's just too much of a problem.
It costs a ton of money to put them back too. That's for sure. I don't know the number, but it's up there big time.
It's not a cheap or easy operation to put those airbags back in. Well, when we had the little Dodge Neon, Nick was driving across Canada and hit a deer, and the whole front end was just, and it was fixed. Like they actually did fix it, but we got rid of it immediately. Like literally within a month or so, we got rid of it. And it was like the amount of work that we knew had to have been done on it to put it back on the road. It can't possibly be safe. Like or not safe enough. We had Quinlan, who was 2, and I was pregnant with Kira, and it was like, yeah, 2 kids. No, we need another car. Time for another car. Oh, we've had quite the trip of conversations today. Dimensional portals, and geomagnetics, and washing machines, and computers. And cars.
Can I go to, I missed the astrology the last 2, and so this is going to seem like, I'm just going to throw this out there because we like to brainstorm, right?
Yep.
But I'm going to say planet X, but let's just say planetary body. This compression of the magnetosphere, do you think it could possibly be from a planetary body? Like,
I said to Nick just today, I refuse to take that card off the table. I'm not taking that card off the table because we don't know. And there's too many. Now, I will say the difference in the blasts that we're seeing this month compared to what we saw in January, when the blast would come in from the sun side, so to speak, the patterns were always the same. They always pushed to the north, and it would always be the southern polar lines that would disconnect, the magnetic lines. What we're seeing this time is very different because we're seeing huge fluctuations where you're seeing even the magnetopause, it's the top will go, and then 6 hours later the bottom will get all the pressure, and then we'll see where exactly a big blast will come in at, say, 8 o'clock at night, and we'll see all the southern magnetic pole lines let go, and we'll see the push and where the compression is. But then the next blast will come in 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it'll be the exact opposite. It's not as pattern specific this time like it was in January, because January I was really looking at the whole Nibiru stuff again, going, there has to be another planetary body that is causing this directional and always in the same direction. This time is a little different. But no, for me, that question of Planet X or another planetary body, whatever, that card has to stay on the table because we just don't know. We just don't know. So I'm not discounting it. I won't throw it away. Don't know.
I was watching after the California earthquake. I went to Twitter to look for pictures and videos to see what was going on, and someone had a picture of a bald eagle's nest. It might have been on Beacon Hill. I can't remember now. But I was watching it, and the curious thing about that was they had no foreknowledge. Like, do you remember Jim Birkeland? He used to write about, you know, earthquakes and how animals know well ahead of time.
Yep.
And so I was watching the eagles, and then the earthquake hit, and they seemed just as bloody surprised as the people. And I'm thinking, well, then it's got to have a man-made component to it then, because you would have thought that the birds would have reacted. And somebody mentioned it in the UU room in one of the chats. I think that their dog hadn't reacted or something. I'm not sure.
And I've heard several people say that. So, yeah, that's another piece to the puzzle when you sit there and you go, well, animals didn't react. And then crazy crone, exactly. The mass bee die-off that happened. Well,
I didn't hear about that.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, like, there were just like thousands and thousands of bees that just started spiraling and just dropped dead.
Oh, my God.
Well, that's not an earthquake thing. Like, I can't come up with any kind of idea of how an earthquake could affect swarms of bees in that way, unless we're talking about it wasn't an earthquake per se. It was some kind of explosion. It was some kind of, for example, if it was, like we were saying, some bizarre experiment gone wrong underground. Who knows what kind of frequencies could be let off by something like that?
Why does China Lake ring a bell? Did something happen there before? Rex is down there with his radiation monitor.
I was talking earlier in the show. I was talking about I watched one of Rex's live streams this morning, talking about some of that stuff. China Lake. I was actually doing that earlier today too, because I kept going, what do I know that from? And I think it was something that I'd read many, many years ago, and conspiracy stuff. Do you know what I mean? Conspiracy stuff about, underground experiments, secret lab experiments, military, that kind of stuff. But I can't remember specifically what it was. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, Moksha, that's what we're talking about. Leak Project. Rex Bear from Leak Project. I can scratch my entire forehead off. This is making me insane.
So has Dutch predicted another earthquake?
I haven't watched anything that he's done in the last couple of days. Like, I've been so fucking crazy busy. I haven't watched. So I don't know if anyone else watched anything from Dutch. I know at one point he was saying there was a very good chance there could be another one that comes along that's. But again, is that if it's an earthquake?
Right, that's if it's an earthquake.
Okay, I have a little update on that.
Hi, Jane.
Hey, he said to expect more movement in the next 5 days.
Okay.
He said he hopes he's wrong and he hopes he has egg on his face. Yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, let's go back to that. Earthquake versus something underground or man-made, etc. Am I not correct in saying Dutch since did predict this earthquake was coming? Did he not?
Yep.
And he was right on the prediction in the model of what he said. So that would more lend me to believe that it was an actual earthquake, because his prediction models are not going to predict underground drilling or man-made stuff.
No, you're right.
No, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for bringing that up. That is a really, really good point to keep in mind.
It's funny that we all watch the same YouTubers, eh?
Well, we've all been hanging out together for an awful lot of years, so
Yes, I guess. Yeah,
kind of
you're
rubs
right.
off on each other.
Yeah. I've been watching Dutch, I think, since, oh my gosh, 2011. The whole BB Arkansas thing freaked me out.
Yeah, about there, 2011, definitely, maybe early 2012, but no, I'd say probably 2011. I started watching Dutch's stuff.
Yeah.
I love that. I have somebody. You always get people who are comments on the geomagnetic stuff, and they get people going, "Oh, you should watch Dutch since." I'm like, dude, I've been watching Dutch since 2011. Okay.
Do you remember when he got in a fight with that Michael guy?
Yes.
Do you remember the radiation? He convinced him to come down, and he totally swindled him. Poor guy.
Yep.
That really sucked. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's drama. We'll leave that out.
Yeah, no drama, please. No more drama. I can't take any more. Well, darlings, we are at 2 hours, and I have to teach in Malta tomorrow morning, so I have to be up at some god-awful hour. Like, I have to be up in 6 hours. I have to be up in 6 hours and out of the house and on the ferry to get to Malta to teach. So I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to say good night to everyone. Tomorrow night, special show. We're doing a deep immersion with Emily Moyer and Jeff Gates again. And God knows where the show's going to go. I know we're going to be talking blockchain again. I know we're going to be talking about the metaphysical stuff in the blockchain again. But where it goes from there, I don't know. Jane, it will be an hour earlier than the usual shows. So usually the shows are 10 p.m. my time. We'll be doing it at 9 p.m. Usually when we have Emily on, because Emily starts work at 2:30 in the afternoon, we always try, the show has to be backed up an hour earlier. So it'll be 9 p.m. Central Europe and 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. It'll be, Clive, I'll put the link out in like Zoom and everywhere else, so then I'll have all that stuff put out, just like I do with this show. So that'll be tomorrow night. Okay, my darlings, I'm going to let you go and say good night to everyone. Good night, everyone. Good night, Twitch live stream.
That's one small step for man.